Hello, welcome back. It's been a while. Last time I said I'd have something before the year started, and now it's February. I was working on something big at the time, but it didn't go well for several reasons, and I just needed a bit of a break from making art. So for some time now, I wanted to make a watercolor painting to show you guys a bit of how I do it, and so that's what I have for you today. I've been playing Minecraft with my friends for the past few weeks, and I did a bit of a sketch on how I wanted my base to look when I was playing, which I'll show here. And I liked it to the point where I thought I could make an art piece. At the time I also bought some watercolors, so the timing was perfect for me to make another watercolor painting. The last time I did something with watercolors was big, literally speaking. I made a painting of, I guess, a tulip. I'm not really sure what I would call it. And yeah, so this is my past watercolor experience. This wasn't the toughest thing to make a sketch for. I was going off of the forest, which of course I could see, and then there's a sketch of the structure, which the structure is supposed to blend in a little with the environment. I originally had the top of the house be more geometric, but I later decided that it would look better if it was a rough circle. The wall at the bottom is going to be some stone covered with a bit of vines, and with a bit of a rose there, just to add more detail to it. And then came the easier part of making the sketch, which was the trees. I've since continued to practice drawing trees, experimenting with different ways on how they could look, and so I felt a lot more comfortable making them, which in turn allowed me to do it a lot quicker. And after this, it was time to move on to the paints. I just said I was gonna get into the paints, but this is actually a watercolor pencil. When I was buying my paints, I accidentally bought two greens instead of a green and a blue, but luckily some years ago I bought the set of pencils. I haven't used them much, but it really came in handy for this painting. The blue one extends to the border of the painting. It's just going to be around the main area. I do later add more layers to it so it's darker, but this is just going to be the first one. And all that has to be done to activate it is just a bit of water, and other than that, it acts pretty much the same as paint. Now we actually got on to the actual part of painting. I'd watched some videos about painting, so I didn't feel too scared to go into this. I first got in with the brown, which when I get to the second tree, it's a bit more faded. Then I add some green to both trees while it's still wet. And then once it's dried up, I once again add a darker green so it just has more of a mossy look. When I first started to paint the leaves, I thought the yellow was going to be too intense, but that wasn't actually the case once it starts to dry up. For the leaves, I also added a darker color while it was still wet, but I think it is a different hue, which did bother me a bit, but overall I think the painting is fine. The stone is something I work on in steps. I wanted it to have a green tint, so I did add a bit of green to the paint's gray, but then it turned out too green, so I eventually get a clean brush and begin to take away some of the pigments, and it did look fine, stained like it did. Then as you can see, I added some more gray while it's still wet. Then after that dries out, I use a really fine brush to make details so that would look like it's brick. After that, I go up a bit and put in some blue where the window is. For now, I also have just one layer of paint, but at later points I do come in with a darker blue. Then I add a bit of green so it looks like it's reflecting the leaves from the trees that are right in front of it. But once I do add that first layer, I go down to paint the grass. And then when things dry up, I start to worry a bit. I'd be lying if I didn't think that the painting was screwed at this point. I should just stop and make something else, but I decide to push through. This probably happened. It actually is the reason it did happen. The paper warped, and that might have caused the water to just not stay there and slip around. And so, to try to fix it, I add another layer of green, but that doesn't do anything to cover it up. Then off camera, I also had a darker layer, but still, it showed up. After those failed attempts, I move on to painting some of the other trees. Again, adding some green to resemble moss. Of course, then comes the part where I have to paint the leaves, and that's where I think I make another big mistake, adding a very strong yellow highlight to a dark green. Once again, after making that mistake, I move on to the next trees, and I didn't notice that pattern until I started editing the video. I thought it would look weird if the tree in the center had no leaves, so I painted some on. I didn't want to first make an outline since it's supposed to be quite far away, and I think it'll look better if I didn't make that ink outline. To make the leaves darker, I add some paint spray, a bit of a dark red that I have, then of course I go over it with a darker green. This part is out of focus, so I'm sorry about that. I add some vines to the stone. Off camera I also tried adding some shadows to the stone, and then I darken the banner and add some roses to the vines. Well, that wraps up this video. If you liked the video, like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in March. Goodbye.